de mi corazón.
Byron, what's up, man? We were, like, I saw you on the booking schedule today. I'm like, yo, we're just going to be live tomorrow night, but we can rock and roll today. There's a lot going on in Washington, D.C. Are the Democrats going to open up the House, open up the government, or what's going on?
Look, Republicans are going to take care of that. Now that the Senate's done, we're going to take the ball, get this thing back open. I mean, I would anticipate probably 5 or maybe 10 Democrats will vote with us, but we're going to get this done today.
Done today, so the government reopens today. That bill goes to the president.
That's right. That's the plan.
Yeah. Okay. Hakeem Jeffries out screaming that he ain't going to let it happen because he wants to give illegals Obamacare. Is there any chance of that actually sticking?
No, I mean, that's just Hakeem just running his mouth. Listen, this whole thing has been really sad. We're 41, 42 days into a shutdown. Flights are being canceled. People are not getting SNAP and WIC benefits. Soldiers haven't been paid. All because the Democrats are trying to prove that they're tough. And that's really what's sad. And look, this whole thing about healthcare, I know that, there are some who are saying, well, Byron, let's not get into healthcare discussions. No, we got to get into it. Healthcare premiums in this country have gone through the roof because of the Democrats' healthcare plan. And I'll say it again, it is their healthcare plan, because that's the one that's federal law now, that has led to premiums going through the roof, deductibles going through the roof. People are having to choose between paying their rent and paying for insurance. That's crazy. And that is pushing downward pressure on young kids just getting out of college, trying to get ahead in America, putting pressure on sole proprietors, people on 1099s who don't work at a Wells Fargo. They don't work at an AT&T where they have large group health insurance plans to cover them. These people are struggling. And what's the Democrat solution? More subsidies to just cover up what's already happening. And look, there's people out there who are saying right now, even with these subsidies, it still won't actually drive down the cost of health insurance because the costs are out of control, because Obamacare was never about affordability. It was about control of the health insurance markets and sending billions of dollars to health insurance companies.
You say you want to get into it, so let's talk about one of the biggest critical failures of my lifetime that I've ever seen. It's like maybe one of the saddest days ever to be a Republican was John McCain's little thumbs down situation. Yeah. But also Republicans didn't really have a great plan there. Many senators have been on our show saying, like we were trying to make something happen, but we really didn't have a really smart strategy for how that was going to work. Probably would have been better than Obamacare, but what should Republicans do to actually fix this? Is it fixable?
It is fixable. I think first, it's about health savings accounts. I think the president was going down this line saying, let's just give the dollars directly to people so they can go and purchase from health insurance companies. Look, if you look at any segment of our economy where people have the money to make their own purchasing decisions, those prices are actually rising less than the rate of inflation. Prices in those industries are actually down. But when you have massive government subsidies, the prices always go through the roof. And that's the problem in our healthcare system. So it's about patient-centered health insurance where people are actually buying the plans that they need, not the plans that Washington says that they're going to get. I think there is major room for catastrophic healthcare plans. Look, if you're under the age of 45, you don't really need major you don't really need major gold-plated health insurance. What you need is a low-cost plan where you can go do visits and get some routine testing. And then you need a catastrophic plan in case something major happens and you have ability to pay a deductible and take care of that. But these bronze plans that are $2,000 a month, that's crazy, Benny. But that's what's happening across America. I think the bedrock of what Republicans should do is that we should start with catastrophic, start with people being able to actually buy these plans directly. If you have to give them the dollars to do that, let's do that, because in Florida, we're doing that when it comes to education. We actually are getting out of the business of sending the money to the school districts and then telling parents that's where you send your kids to go to school. That's what school choice and parental empowerment is all about. It's about giving parents the purchasing power to make educational decisions. And we need to do the same thing in healthcare. Give people the purchasing power so they can make healthcare decisions. And then you'll have a marketplace that I believe you'll actually see premiums come down. because people will be buying what they are looking for as opposed to buying what they were told to buy, whether it's a bronze plan or a silver plan or a gold plan.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up such a great point there that like young people really aren't focused that much on healthcare. It is actually an older generation coded issue. Young people are really focused on housing. They want to get started with the American dream. Of course, you can't bring your new bride home to the group house or the frat house. You don't want to raise a family in a one-room apartment. You don't want to raise kids with 100 strangers in a building, nihilistically renting. This is the inability for young people to buy homes is robbing us of the American dream. Here's some data that is just crippling for me to see, and it's the last piece of data that Charlie Kirk actually posted on this issue days before he died, saying that the American dream has been stolen from young people.
Yeah.
And that young people just aren't able to buy homes or get families started. Now, you talk about giveaways to the college cartel and to universities. The federal government's very much in the business of that, of pushing trillions of dollars of student loans and trillions of dollars to university, but does virtually nothing for housing and for encouraging of young people to get started with housing. This is a crisis. I'm going over solutions with a lot of different parties, but I wanted to talk with you about it. Maybe on a federal level, national level, and then on a Florida level. How would you approach first-time home buying and incentivizing it?
Well, look, when it comes to first-time home buying, my solutions are, number one, the cost of permitting to build these homes. We have to build a lot of homes in our country. The solution is not rent control. That's the Democrat playbook. It doesn't work. It only leads to higher prices for everybody. You have to break down the regulatory burden to procure raw materials, to actually build housing. On the federal level, there needs to be NEPA reform to make it easier to build these homes. Two, the regulatory framework about making houses green has only driven up the cost of construction, which drives up the cost of these homes, making it harder for young people to get them, or people on the lower end or the middle end of our economic spectrum to be able to acquire these homes. That's very destructive. Three, on the local level, this is one of the things in my campaign for governor, we are going to overhaul permitting and planning in our state. It can't take you 2 years to put a shovel in the ground to build a home, because that dead time of permitting and government bureaucracy, all that does is add to the cost of building the housing. Four, you got to have parts of any state in the country where you do have some dense housing. That's your entry-level housing, helps people get in the game. You do have to find ways to do that. And I think that when you have people who are saying no more growth, no more construction, what you actually are doing is you're driving up the cost for young people trying to get in the game. But let me get off housing and let me get to something that's really important for young people. Let's talk about jobs. Our K-12 system has failed our young people. If you look at mastery in mathematics, mastery in writing, mastery in reading, our young people are not graduating high school being economically viable. They are not being prepared in the K-12 system. This is one of the reasons why I support school choice so vehemently, because they're not being prepared in the K-12 system for the economy to come. And then they're coming out and they're graduating and they're wondering why. How come I'm not getting this job? How come I'm not making more money to be able to get in the game on the American dream? We have all the talent, Benny, in America, all the talent we could possibly need. One of our core problems is our educational establishment, teachers unions, bureaucrats. They have failed a generation of young people, and they're not just prepared. We have the talent, but they've never been trained to be able to do these things. And it's creating a major issue. You couple that with the visa problems that we have. H-1Bs, those are a scam. Those have got to go. Diversity lotteries, I've been opposed to those things for 15 years. Chain migration, it's got to go too. So many of these things have actually been set up by Democrats who want open borders, by corporations that want cheap labor, and it has fallen on young people in America. And it's got to change. It's got to stop.
So this is a great subject matter that you brought up here, because all throughout my timeline is President Trump saying that we need more H-1Bs or more skilled labor brought into the country because we don't have the talent here. What's your take on that? That was from Laura Ingraham last night.
Look, my take is that we have the talent, but the talent hasn't been trained right in our education system. We have a K-12 education system that does not prioritize mastery of core subject matter.
Like
And I think
apprenticeships, inside of
apprenticeships,
industries, HVAC,
exactly.
plumbing, roofing, all
Yes,
of it.
yes.
Okay.
But that, and then it's also, if you're gonna look, if you go to talk to the colleges and universities, and I got my bone to pick with them too, but one of the big issues they're having to do is remediate our high school students to get them prepared for college algebra. So if you're coming in freshman year of college and you're having to go sit in college algebra to be remediated, how is that same student going to be prepared to do engineering math, to design the chips, design the weapon systems, the drone technologies, AI, quantum computing, and all the stuff that America does need to get done to get into the game? So you have young Americans being caught in this lurch where they have a piece of paper from a four-year university, and that piece of paper is not meeting up with the economic reality in America today. And that's why what the president said last night, I think the way I look at it is it's a failure of education first and foremost, and then it is a failure of the current immigration system, which needed to be overhauled 30 years ago, that Senate Democrats and House Democrats do not want to do because they want wide open borders to change the demographics of this nation from a political perspective. And I want to stress that that's a reality we're facing. And now young people are caught in the lurch. So we got multiple issues here we got to fix. Benny, this is one of the reasons I support ending the filibuster. It wasn't even about the shutdown anymore, which is going to end today. It's not about that. What it's about are energy reforms we need, housing reforms that we need, spending reforms, so we're not blowing out budgets here on Capitol Hill, which are decreasing the purchasing power of every American, making things more expensive. And then our educational systems, K-12, have not prepared our young people. Now, in Florida, we're going to reverse that trend. I want to see mastery for every one of our kids in core subject matter when they graduate high school. So when they walk that stage with their high school diploma, they're economically viable, whether that's going to university or that's going directly into the workforce, having a trade that puts real money on the table so they can buy that home, put food on the table, and raise a family and live out the American dream.
This seems like such a smart tact, because to say that Americans aren't talented enough, we put a dude on the moon, right? Like it was like we created space travel, flight. Like that's empirically and untrue. Right? Actually, there's tons of talent in this country. There are certainly failures of systems in order to meet and match the moment. But the solution to that shouldn't be infinity third world foreign migration, right?
I totally agree with that.
To replace American jobs, with what is effectively indentured servitude in the H-1B program. Go talk to anybody in Silicon Valley, they'll tell you. It's just a scam. It's a scam in order to abuse workers for cheap labor.
No, the H-1B system. The H-1B system is a complete scam. It is. We now know that to be the case. But we have to also look at the entire immigration visa framework. We have like 56 visas. They all need a complete overhaul. We do like chain migration needs to go. Like I remember back, Benny, 15 years ago when I started learning about immigration, one of my main points was we actually need to end it and get back to a quota system in immigration in the United States. Look, there is a place for legal immigration in our country. There is a place for it, but it can't be to the detriment of America's workers and America's young people coming into the workforce. And that's what's happened in American immigration. It does need a complete overhaul. Scams like H-1B need to end. But that's where we are today. The fixes, how do you get it done? You need 60 votes in the Senate. Are Senate Democrats going to get to these real reforms that are going to impact not just the quality of life of young people, but helping them to get in the game on achieving and living out the American dream? Like my son is 22, Benny, my oldest son. I'm not talking about this as some guy on Capitol Hill. I'm watching it in real time. My oldest son is 22. My youngest son is 14. My middle one's 18. I'm thinking about their futures too. We have real solutions, but we got to get real. The Senate filibuster is not going to help us get there. It's time to get real agenda items done for the American people.
Okay, so filibuster goes away. Let's take a hypothetical here. Filibuster goes away, and I see there's a lot of bickering online about what should be happening with our immigration system, H-1B system. Where would you set legal immigration caps? Where would you want to see H-1B visa reform? Like, what would be your approach to H-1B visa reform and legal immigration caps? Obviously, I think everyone agrees we must close the border, and illegal immigration should be zero. Deportations of all criminal aliens here in this country, I think we can all agree on that, right? So then how would you approach the legal immigration and visa program?
H-1Bs need to go away. They need to end. That's number one.
Completely.
Number two, the going to quotas is absolutely what we need to do. We should look at every country in the world and say, we need 500, we need 1,000, or whatever the case might be. One of the bills that I've filed in previous Congresses, we're going to file it again this Congress, is creating a biometric exit system. The 9/11 Commission, actually, in their report, they said that the United States needs a biometric entry and exit system in visas. We created the entry system. We never created the exit system. So how does the United States even know when somebody who's here on a 3-year visa, a 5-year visa, a 6 months visa, how do we even know when they leave? The truth is we don't. So I think you have to have a quota system coupled with a biometric exit system. So let's take China, let's take Japan, for example. If we give Japan 2,000 visas per year, and then through our biometric exit system, we see that only 700 Japanese returned. We're not going to give you 2,000 the next year. Now you get 1,300, or because only 700 went. Now you only get the 1,300. You get the difference because those countries have to help us make sure their foreign nationals go back home. I think that's how you set legal immigration into the future. Birthright citizenship, I've always been opposed to it. I think birthright citizenship really is an anathema to the 14th Amendment and to Black slaves, because Black slaves are the ones who truly were here through no fault of their own. The 14th was so that Black slaves could have citizenship in the United States, and we don't need to go down the history on that one. And so birthright citizenship is something that's never really been passed by Congress, It's an interpretation that's just been allowed to persist. So you got to end that one. One of your parents has to be a citizen in order for you to have quote unquote birthright citizenship. Benny, if my wife was pregnant and we were traveling and our kid was born in, let's say, France, the light went out, it's fine. And let's say that our child was born in France, our child wouldn't be a French citizen. They would be a U.S. citizen. France wouldn't recognize that. So those are the things that we have to do there. But it's that and so much more. Guest worker, yeah, there needs to be real reforms in guest worker visas. Are there some seasonal workers that we need in the country? Yes, but there has to be a process where they come in, they do the job, and they go back home. It can't be what we have, where people just come, they overstay their visas, which before Joe Biden let in 15 million illegals, it was visa overstays were the number one reason for illegal immigration in the United States of America. So the immigration process has to be completely overhauled top to bottom. Those are some of the solutions. There are many, many more. And then when you do that, you're talking about ending the filibuster. Energy policy, we need nuclear power, Benny. We need small modular reactors. We got to get that done. When it comes to procuring raw materials for housing, we have every ability to do that. We shouldn't even be importing it, but we can't be killing ourselves with a outdated regulatory burden that's not helping the American people. There's so many things that have to be fixed, but the Senate filibuster is an albatross to getting that work done.
Yep. I just want to ask a follow-up on one point that you made, which is to end H-1B.
Yeah.
If you do that, then you're going to have to go to corporate America, Silicon Valley, and you're going to have to explain that. Because there are entire industries, swaths of industries that have obscene profits based on their ability to screw over the Native American worker that is just as talented or more talented for infinity foreign workers that probably actually have no talent, but are here to work for cheap, and can enter numbers onto a ledger, and they subsist. These entire industries subsist off of that model, off of an indentured servitude H-1B model that obviously I view as immoral, actually. But you're going to have to explain that. So you're saying end all H-1B visas. What should happen for people that are currently here on an H-1B visa? And what would your explanation to those industries look like?
Well, I think first, people who are already here, there's going to have to be a clearinghouse process on that, and that's to be determined how that's going to look. I think for the companies, they need to understand that that immigration is for America. It's not for foreign nationals. It is for America and what America needs, what America workers needs, and really for the vitality of the future of our country. And what's really happened in immigration in the last 60 years in America, this is not even a new phenomena. We're just now dealing with all of the issues of the phenomena. But America immigration over the last 60 years has not been about the American people. It has been about cheap labor for corporations, and it's been about radical open borders for Democrats. And it has not actually been to the priority of the American people. So look, we want companies to come here. We want them to thrive. We want them to flourish, but it can't be to the detriment of the American dream and Americans being able to put food on the table.
I mean, that is what the timeline
I mean, there's nothing
says,
else
man.
to say, Benny. That's it.
it.
Ain't nothing else to say.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And you have to ask yourself the question, like, who exactly are these policies benefiting? They sure as hell aren't benefiting the American worker, the American family, home prices, food prices, the capacity to know your neighbors or have a shared or harmonious culture, to be able to speak even the same language as your neighbors. Like these are not the things that these policies benefit. And yeah, JD Vance made a lot of news last week, and I was there at the speech at Ole Miss when he said, yeah, I think that maybe we should maybe go back to effectively zero net immigration until we figure things out, until we like cool down as a culture and a society, and let things rest a bit, right? Because there's been such an insane influx, and it's been destabilizing, frankly, to a lot of people.
To Benny, real quick to that point, I understand the thought on that and why the vice president's going down that line. I think that the reason why this is being exacerbated to this degree is because of what Joe Biden allowed and Kamala Harris and the Democratic left allowed the last 4 years.
For sure.
When you let 15 million people illegally come into the country, it overwhelms every system. It overwhelms hospitals. It overwhelms schools. It overwhelms local budgets. It actually depresses labor. It depresses wages in labor at the bottom end of the economic spectrum, directly impacting poor Americans and Americans who are just working hard to try to make ends meet. It impacts housing, because when you have Democrats in these states who are basically giving governmental money, which is money of the American people, to illegals to put them up in hotels and put them up in apartments, that just raises the cost of housing. So all of these things that have occurred the last 4 years are why we're in this situation now. So I think what we do need is we need a cooling off period. I do agree with that. This is why we have to go to a quota system in immigration. I firmly believe that we have to do that. Got to go to a quota system. These visa programs need reform. The mass deportations part of this has to continue. The criminal aliens got to go. The people who came in the last 4 years, they're going to have to go home too, because in short, there's no more room at the inn. And when you have this amount of people who were artificially dumped into the United States by radical Democrat policy, it puts a strain on every other resource that the American people are trying to fight for as well.
That reflects the MAGA base, man. I got to tell you, like, my timeline is just filled with that sentiment. That's why JD went so viral 2 weeks ago at Ole Miss for making that argument. And he made it in a way that I think really like resonates. He wants a harmonious, safe, and culturally consistent America, where you actually know your neighbors and that you can have a high trust society. Yeah. And I think that's a moral good that we should want in our nation. And it doesn't happen when you dump 30 million criminal aliens directly into the heart of the country. It's impossible, actually.
Look, I think we can actually get a lot of this stuff done. The question is, are Senate Democrats willing to work on behalf of the American people, or is their strategy about getting Donald Trump? And that's where we are right now in America. Look, I hate to break it to people. Look, I flew out of Miami last night to get back to DC to get here to reopen the government. And I was talking to a couple of the TSA guys, and they go, we were joking about, man, do we got to check your bag in order to get an autograph? And I was like, we could do that, but I got to get this flight so you guys can get paid. And they laughed. They're like, no, go on to the flight. But think about this. We had TSA agents, and I know not everybody likes TSA. You know, they can be a pain in the butt. I don't want to take my shoes off. Stop checking my belt. It's my belt. You know, like they're trying to do their job. Let's remember when TSA came into existence, and I got my issue. Everybody's got them, but they're Americans. They're working hard. And then when you have Democrats want to use a government shutdown to prove that they're a bunch of tough guys and they can stand up to Trump, who actually gets hurt in that? Military people, men and women, the contractors around our military, they're not getting paid. They're not getting their stuff done. We're coming up on Thanksgiving and the Democrats are having a fight about the future of Chuck Schumer. Nobody cares about Chuck Schumer and his leadership. People are about putting food on the table, a roof over their head, and making sure their kids have an ability to chase the American dream. That's what it's always been about. And that's what we got to be focused on going forward.
All right. Everyone should love those answers from Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds, the next governor of the state of Florida, also someone who will be appearing with me and the Turning Point generation at the University of Florida tomorrow night. You can sign up right here. The link is in the description. We'll see you there. Thank you, Byron.
See you, Benny.
Godspeed.